Thank you for joining today. Really appreciate it. And I see we have some folks that are new to RunDeck, so we will. I'll be sure to kind of start from the ground floor and give you an idea of exactly what RunDeck is. So today we're going to definitely cover that, as well as how we are helping operations and customers of operations, and talk a little bit about what makes RunDeck so impactful. So hi, my name is Tracy. I'm an engineer with RunDeck. You can follow me at Tracy Skywalker on Twitter. Pretty easy to remember. You can always email me at tracy@rundeck.com, just TRACY. 25 years in information technology, developer, in operations, consultant, management. You can do a lot in IT. So RunDeck. Well, let's start with RunDeck is a open source automation platform. We are basically automation for your automation. Started as an open source project in 2010. Very active open source project. You can always download RunDeck for free and try it out. Almost all of the functionality in the open source version is also in the enterprise version, which came about a couple of years ago. There was a need for human support, high availability, some of the enterprise features, enterprise plugins, complex workflows, and things like this. So that's really, at the simple level, kind of the differences between that. Over 150 customers are using RunDeck in production, and we estimate, there's been over 60,000 downloads of the open source version. We are aware of a lot of companies that are using it in their environment from just the open source standpoint. Why do those companies come to RunDeck? Well, generally, if they're moving toward a DevOps approach, maybe they're trying to make things more efficient. You see a lot of this with development groups that are using Agile and some other things to try to deliver code faster. You see CI/CD pipelines and additional automation around just basically improving their SDLC. At the same time, operations groups are experiencing the pressures of not only availability, but of higher security and compliance requirements, auditing requirements that force them to kind of have to try to slow things down a little bit, or at least distract them from giving applications and processes all of the attention that they can possibly give, because they're really stretched between a lot of different opinions and a lot of different needs from within their organization. Additionally, operations is somewhat impacted by the fact that operations is also impacted by what we call low trust environments. So basically, limited folks have access to production environments, or you have to escalate to a person who has the password to do the thing. We also call this toil. Toil, as defined by Google and the site reliability engineering concept, it's a little bit of maybe a stronger definition of kind of the operations and toil. Basically, things that you do in response to tickets or walk-up requests, people asking you to do the thing because you have the password or you have the access to the environment, restarting services, just a lot of the kind of things that are commonplace, repeatable, probably automated, but even the fact that you have to run that automation manually at a request, that is toil. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Silos still exist. Even in two pizza teams, we're typically pulling people from different groups of organizations. They have their own tools, they have their own contexts and skill sets. So we still have requests from different groups coming in either through tickets or walk-up requests, et cetera. And of course, ticketing systems can be kind of an expensive way to manage your workload. And not that we're against tickets, but certainly tickets are a lot of issues, expensive way to manage work, and a lot of issues with kind of managing your work through ticket queues. I don't think anybody really intends to do this. It just kind of is a result of the environment. Let me jump back to this toil slide. This is a free book. If you just search Google on SRE, it'll take you to this book. There's an entire chapter on toil, how to measure toil, what is an acceptable level of toil, and really kind of the definition of it. Let me tell you, in 25 years of IT, toil exists in every single environment. There is no such thing as an environment that doesn't have some toil in it. It's really just how do you manage it? How do you keep it from really impacting your operational group to the point that they can't do anything else except kind of respond to these ad hoc requests and things that are impacting them. Eliminating toil is a key area for any DevOps transformation, or really anything that you're trying to do where you're trying to speed up delivery and free up resources, so you're not just having to hire more engineers, actually making them a little bit more efficient. So how does RunDeck help with that? Well, let's start with RunDeck has a full user interface. We have a API first development methodology. So our API completely covers all of the functionality within RunDeck itself. And we also have a command line tool that you can use to call jobs, create projects, etc. This comes in very handy and increases the flexibility of RunDeck. RunDeck, as you may have a guess by now, is all about your automation, your existing automation. We don't have our own Ansible language or anything like that to create automation. We are an enhancement to your existing automation. And we can connect all of these pieces of automation to each other within a workflow. So you can actually run an Ansible playbook and a bash script, and then maybe a chef cookbook, all in the same workflow, all in the same automation. So again, we are, and some customers have even told us that we are an upgrade to their existing automation. And this is why we say we're kind of an automation console for your automation. Now, the way this works is we don't have agents. We simply use the existing login like SSH or WinRM that you're currently using in those environments. And our target nodes, and we call them nodes just like Ansible does, our target nodes can be any infrastructure, your virtual machines, containers, network devices, etc., databases. We want RunDeck to know about all of these endpoints because we can run all of that automation across all of those endpoints simultaneously, regardless of the environment that they're in. So this gives RunDeck a little bit more power to effectively run that automation. The key to RunDeck being able to be used for self-service and for eliminating toil is because RunDeck has security built in. We are an additional layer of security to your existing security. We commonly have CSOs or security teams reach out to RunDeck to help put the guide rails or the guardrails and implement more flexibility in how companies give access to privileged environments. We are authenticating using your existing authentication systems, your LDAPs, your Active Directory, Ping, Okta. And if you don't already have a key store for storing passwords and security keys, we can also store those in RunDeck themselves. So with the flexibility of using your existing or storing those keys within RunDeck, and this way you can provide access to run an automation job in a secure environment where that user may not have actual privileges to log in or actually do anything else in that environment. We have customers such as Boeing who have used RunDeck to allow offshore resources to run automation in high security environments that involve Department of Defense and security, where non-American resources are not allowed in these certain environments, but they can run a RunDeck job. Part of that is because of the security. Also, part of that is because we have version control over the RunDeck jobs. So you can version them, you can show who changed a job. So you have full command and control over the jobs of who runs them, where they can run them, and the complete audit trail per job. We also integrate with issue tracking systems. So as part of that automation workflow, instead of a user creating a ticket asking you to run the thing so that they can do something, they actually, you can open and close those tickets as part of a workflow. So instead of opening a ticket, they can just run a RunDeck job, and that job can open the ticket, log into the system, run the thing, pull the information back, notify everybody, update the ticket, and close the ticket, all as part of that single workflow. And this is really where we are able to attack toil and kind of eliminate all of that context switching and the swivel chair processes by providing that capability to your users to let them self-serve their operations and free your operations people from having to respond to those kind of mundane, should be automated requests. We can also implement different things with logging. We can transform logging, filter logging, highlight things that are in the logs, respond to different things that are in the logs, as well as communications of letting people know what's going on in email, webhooks, Slack channels, etc. All the logos that you're seeing here, these are not a complete list of all the different capabilities that RunDeck has. RunDeck is a very pluggable architecture. We don't do real hard integrations, really. So this allows RunDeck to be flexible to custom homegrown applications. In fact, any input or output of RunDeck is customizable via plugins. Plugins can be written in Java, Groovy, or in scripts. They're fairly easy to write. We help our support staff as part of RunDeck Enterprise. We help companies write these plugins. We provide support, and we're able to do that because they are so easy to write. So that's kind of the broad view of what RunDeck is. What type of things does RunDeck do is from a use case perspective? Well, obviously, provisioning things, environments, infrastructure, applications. Basically, when you're providing a resource, you're using things, you have to access the environment, you're going to deploy something to that environment, maybe you're going to create that environment, maybe you're doing infrastructure as code. We do have customers that do RunDeck as code, that actually create the jobs and pass those through QA and into production for operations personnel, or even self-service back to development to affect changes in those production environments or create new environments, restart services, these kind of things. So RunDeck fits in between all of these existing processes that you may have. We were just talking to some users today about they had to have a conference call every time they did a go live on weekend, had to have 8 to 10 people. Each group was doing a specific part, updating the server, redeploying the database, et cetera, and they were going to automate all of that with RunDeck jobs and use the automation from those different groups to do that. Remediation, obviously when you're diagnosing a problem, you're logging into a server running top, you notice that there's 3 other engineers running top on the same server. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. Once you kind of figure out, well, you think it's this, you escalate it to a group that then may do some other steps to further investigate, or maybe they start asking for log files. Can you send us this? You send it to them. It's not that log file, it's the other log file. And then once they get to that point, they may repair that with some automation that they've already run. So again, RunDeck can kind of take the place of a lot of these manual steps and make it easier to do your remediation, and even provide ability for like level 1 support staff or folks in the NOC to just execute some remediation to see if that effectively resolves the problem that may be there. Couple of other use cases, scheduling. So we're not a direct replacement for Control M or some of the what we call the big job schedulers. You can absolutely schedule jobs within RunDeck. We're absolutely a complete replacement for cron or Task Manager in Windows. And we have additional capabilities coming around scheduling. This is a major use case. We have a lot of companies that look to RunDeck for automation, scheduling of jobs. It's worth noting RunDeck doesn't really have any direct competition. We have overlap with a lot of different tools, but we are so singularly focused on being the operational console of all of your automation. For example, I guess Ansible is great automation for your infrastructure. Jenkins is great automation for building artifacts. We use Jenkins internally ourselves. RunDeck is automation for your operations. We kind of define all of the operational day 2 tasks that go on every day in an operations environment. We are operations engineer. RunDeck was built for operations engineers. Final use case, managed service provider. This could be a company where you have multiple internal customers, or that maybe have their own environments. You could be a commercial enterprise with multiple production environments for your customers. This is another place where RunDeck can even provide a self-service console per customer group. So this makes it also easier for you to manage more environments with fewer people, or even scale the number of environments with the same number of people that you have, because you can offer this self-service and kind of eliminate some of that toil before it gets there. We talked about self-service. We don't really consider this a use case in itself, but this is certainly the nirvana of RunDeck and kind of how it works for self-service. Basically just all those requests, eliminate all that waiting. When we do ROIs for customers, and we usually will do this with a POC, the POC always pays for itself and shows that you are gaining a lot more in the time savings and the waiting around of multiple people, not just the requester, but also within an internal group. You may be reassigning tickets, or you may have 3 or 4 people assigned to a ticket. Being able to eliminate all of that and still maintain your visibility and control of those is really the nirvana that RunDeck seeks to take care of. I'll just give a couple of quick examples of customers using RunDeck. Jody Mulkey did this presentation at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in 2015. Basically, Ticketmaster was measuring ticket time, mean time to resolution, which was about 47 minutes. They were constantly having outages on the weekends whenever they would, release new tickets to Adele or the Rolling Stones. All their customers would launch a DDoS attack against them trying to get tickets, and they would have outages. They began to do this thing called service to the left, or support at the edge. That's what it is. Shift left, support at the edge, where they would allow the level 1 support engineers, when they would see these outages happening, or they would get alarms from the monitoring systems, to allow them to do self-service to start doing some of this remediation. And they were able to reduce that MTTR to under 4 minutes, which was pretty astounding when you think about the size of Ticketmaster and the complexity of their systems. So that's a great talk. You can find that again, Jody Mulkey, that's on YouTube. Another great success story comes from Sean Norris. Previously with Standard Chartered Bank, he actually just moved to Pivotal. But Sean is still talking and doing talks about the Standard Charter DevOps transformation. And a key component of this was eliminating toil. They had an engineer, started using RunDeck, did some automation workflows, and extended those as a self-service job. Other groups started to hear about this self-service capability and began asking that engineer to help them automate and provide some self-service for these environments. And we're talking about some pretty complex environments all over the world. A lot of acquisitions, very mixed environment of new stuff and old stuff, and data sovereignty, et cetera, and certainly heavy compliance. This began to spread more and more. They did a formal POC. They were able to show that, oh my gosh, this is going to save us so much time and money. And in fact, they estimated over the course of the next year, it was going to save them about 28 people years worth of work. They have over 1,000 applications in production. And by the time Sean gave this talk last fall at a DevOps Enterprise Summit, they had only rolled RunDeck out for approximately 400 of those 1,000 applications. This became a critical piece of their DevOps transformation. Among all the other things they were doing, it was something that they could start right away. And as Sean says, it was a huge win and continues to be a huge win for them. That said, I see we have a few minutes left for me to quickly give you a run through of RunDeck. So we're going to start here at we logged in. You see everything listed here as projects. So this is just a way of organizing your automation. You can think of this as environments or applications, or maybe this is how you're going to give access for that self-service job. Someone would have access to maybe Anvil's Online. They would see all the documentation related to this. They would also see the schedule for any scheduled jobs that are taking place within this particular project. This is Markdown compliant, so it makes it very easy to include links or existing documentation. You can kind of put it all in one place. You can also do documentation per job. So we go to the jobs here. We can have jobs kind of categorized in different drop-downs. We can look at a dashboard of all the jobs that are included, how many executions, when they're scheduled, and you can run them right from here. if you were to give the user a single job to run, and that's all you wanted them to do, this would be the screen that they would see. They would come in, they could see the schedule for this particular job. You can give them options for how you want them to run that job. You can request that they enter a password. You could use a stored password or a stored key to run that job. You might allow them to change the target nodes for that job, or you might not. Either way, they basically get a big green button that says run this job right now, and that's what they get to click on, and they can run that job. There's fine-grained access control that allows you whether or not they can view the definition of a job or not, what that strategy is, can they change things with that job, where it runs. All of these things are controlled with that access control. We talked a little bit about the nodes. These are obviously the targets of your automation. We can pull these nodes from a variety of sources. So AWS, your CMDB, an Excel spreadsheet, multiple sources can be used to pull in all the information about your nodes. We can use tags to filter on those nodes. Makes it very flexible for you to determine where you're going to run that automation. One handy thing about RunDeck is I can actually run ad hoc commands against all those nodes. Since I have the information about them, just have a simple command or a complex command and just run it across those nodes immediately. Again, just like the jobs that are scheduled, just like the jobs that are done from a self-service standpoint, everything is logged. You get a unique URL that you can always click to and pull up the information about this job. We're categorizing all of the log output per node, and I can save this as a job. If I were to go to the logging information of this, it'll always show me what's here, what's available, and I can always go to the log and see the output of that. Run this again, share this with my compliance officer, etc. We do have a dashboard for all the activities, so it can show you jobs that have not completed correctly, let you troubleshoot automation that maybe has failed. We also have added recently health checks, which allow you to check the health of your nodes. So this will allow you to basically define what healthy means to you. Maybe it's disk space, or maybe it's CPU or RAM availability for a particular endpoint. You can define that via a command or via a script. And what's really cool is when you run these, you can actually use the output as attributes to the node definition itself. And so that information can also show up within your nodes list. You can use that to perhaps add additional tags to filter on those nodes, things like that. It also comes in handy when you're running a job, maybe you're patching 200 servers. If some of those servers aren't responding, you can use the health check to exclude them from your automation job so that your job doesn't fail because you had a couple of nodes that frankly weren't responding or doing right. A brand new feature in 3.1 is the reactions. I don't really have a demo to show you of this, but basically what reactions is the ability to subscribe to a messaging service. This could be a monitoring service. This could also be a RabbitMQ, but subscribe to messages, and based on the message content, react with some automation job. So this will allow you to subscribe to those messages, execute some automation that, or maybe some remediation, or maybe it's a notification, whatever the case, gives you even more flexibility for using your existing automation. I see we've got a couple of questions here. How is data managed and backed up for the RunDeck server? All jobs are saved to local directory to be backed up. Yes. So the backend for RunDeck is any relational database. We support MariaDB, MySQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. The open source version of RunDeck runs against a single database instance. With the enterprise version, we allow you to have multiple instances of RunDeck running against a single database server. So a lot of the high availability, and we can do automatic failover in that kind of a cluster. A lot of your management for DR and backups is done at the database level. So you can leverage your database expertise, have high availability with your database. You can even have data spread RunDeck between, say, the cloud and your private data center, if you have your database running in active mode between those two environments. And you can point RunDeck at each one of those. So if a database goes down, or maybe the cloud goes down, RunDeck will automatically reschedule jobs. to the actual running RunDeck servers. And if you have any active jobs running, RunDeck will also kick those off again within that environment. Obviously, you run into some environmental things with you've got servers in the cloud that aren't also in your private DC, things like that. But for the most part, it's all within the DR, and the backup is all within the RunDeck database. Everything is contained within the database except for the actual log files. We can use log stores. We can use S3. The logs obviously can get very, very big. So we have those kind of self-contained outside of the database itself. Another question, are jobs required to be tied to a server instance? For example, a job that pulls information from an API, generates a CSV file, isn't directly tied to a server. No, they do not have to be tied to a server or instance. For example, in my little Inception environment here, I have 3 nodes that are running here. And if I can run jobs from my RunDeck server itself. So for example, we often see a lot of like data movement jobs. I need data from this server over here. I need to pull it down. I need to scan it for security and various things. And then I need to send it to a different server or a user over here where they'll pick that file up, kind of thing. Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to, you obviously have to have a node to run your automation, at least one server, but that server can be the RunDeck server itself. So you can use it as the intermediary, or you can define the different nodes based on how you want that automation to run. So I think the answer is an unequivocal yes to that. And if you have any other questions, feel free to type those into the chat session. I see we just hit our 30-minute mark. Again, and then I think that's where I'm going to kind of wrap up as well. We've covered quite a bit. I'll take you through one more thing. If you've got one spare minute, I'll take you through an actual job, and we'll just kind of highlight the different components of a job so you can kind of see how this actually looks. So we have, and you can see up here at the top, this is actually new with 3.1 also. We used to have this kind of in a big, long, scrolling list, and now we've broken it up into these sections, which makes it a lot easier to explain. You can include all the details for the job. The workflow, this is where this is where the magic happens. You have options that you can add for different things for the user to enter. It could be lists. You could pull this information from a server. You can have cascading selection boxes. A lot of flexibility with how you do options. The workflow steps, we have different strategies. If you just want to do them node by node, let's patch all 500 servers all at the same time, we can do that as well. You can also do sequential, where you run one job step on each node, and then you run the second job step on each node, and then the third job step on each node. This is actually a pluggable feature as well. So there's any kind of customization that you need to do there, we can absolutely do that. You can see here, I've got a single step within this workflow. When I add a step, I can run commands, I can execute a script, I can refer to another job, and then all these plugins that come in down here. You can do just about any kind of automation that you want to do within a job step. Job steps run, node steps run on each node in the workflow, and workflow steps run once per workflow. So this would be like updating a ticket that said, yep, I just patched all 500 servers. Additionally, you can define your nodes at runtime. You can set them to be static. You can set them so that a user can determine what they are. Complete flexibility on how you select where the automation is going to be run and whether or not the user can change that. Our scheduling features, we can enable scheduling, disable scheduling, whether you want it to run every day or not. You can set up all of that. We fully support Quartz cron tab, so pretty advanced cron capabilities there. And I know that on our roadmap, we've got some additional advanced capabilities around the schedule coming soon. Notifications, you can send notifications on the success of it. of a job. When it fails, you can also have failure steps within the jobs themselves. So if a job step fails, you can take an alternative path to do some remediation or other things that you may want to do with that. You can also email, set notifications, shout to a Slack channel when the job started, or perhaps if the average duration has been exceeded by 10 minutes or 10% or something like that, you can also have notifications triggered based on that as well. You notice webhooks is one of these emails. So you can send emails, you can include the logs in those emails, or connect to other systems and trigger other systems to do other things. So again, this was a very quick overview of RunDeck. I hope that it has helped you understand kind of where RunDeck fits in the world and how we strive to help operations teams deal with their toil and provide self-service back to their customers, and how we can run with all of your existing automation. I hope this has been invaluable. And again, I'll just throw this up there real quick. If you have any other questions or would like to reach out to me, again, my name is Tracy. I am with RunDeck. You can follow me on Twitter, send me an email. Yes, that's really me. And yes, I'm a Star Wars fan. So I hope you have a great day. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, and talk to you soon. Thank you.